Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Oldham County Fiscal. I'm David Vogel, Judge Executive. We're happy to have you here at our meeting today on April 6, 2021. If you have a cell phone with you, please turn it to off or vibrate. Now, if you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Denise Clark, will you please call the roll?
Magistrate Likens.
Here.
Magistrate Tice.
Here.
Magistrate Harrison.
Here.
Magistrate Greenwell.
Here.
Magistrate Howens.
Here.
Magistrate Hawkins.
Here.
Magistrate Dye.
Here.
Magistrate Logston. Judge Vogel.
Having 8 of the 9 members of the fiscal court present, this meeting is now in session. Is there a motion to accept the agenda? Are there any additions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. First item on the agenda is the reading of our minutes from our last meeting, which was on March 16th.
The Oldham County Fiscal Court convened at a regular meeting at 2 p.m. via Zoom and Facebook Live with Judge Executive David Vogel, County Attorney John Carter, and the following magistrates in attendance: Wayne Tice, Albert Harrison, Steve Greenwell, Chris Hound, Stephanie Hawkins, Bob Dye, and Michael Logston. Magistrate Brent Likens was absent. Motion made by Magistrate Logston and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to approve the agenda as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Howens and seconded by Magistrate Logston to approve the meeting minutes from March 2nd, 2021. Motion carried unanimously. Matt Rhodes, Director of Public Health for the Oldham County Health Department, provided an update on the status of COVID-19 in the community and the COVID-19 phased vaccine campaign for Oldham County. Public comments. Jessica Hudnall commented she did not know why there was a rush to cut down the trees at Schambach Park, and there's no timeline or official plan for the park. Summer Swords commented on the Change.org petition in support of keeping the trees and asked for there to be a compromise to keep the trees while continuing to make progress on the park, as the original motion was to keep the healthy trees and remove the dead trees. She showed pictures of her family enjoying Schambach Park. The following sealed bids were opened and read aloud for the Household Hazardous Waste Collection event scheduled for October 2nd, 2021. Clean Earth Inc., Winco, Alabama, $32,083.30. Environmental Enterprises, Cincinnati, Ohio, $29,000. MXI Environmental Services, LLC, Abingdon, Virginia, $35,000. Tradeby Environmental Services, Merrillville, Indiana, no amount provided. Discussion followed. The bids were provided to Becky Zockwai, Solid Waste Recycling and Grants Coordinator, for review recommendation. Motion made by Magistrate Logston and seconded by Magistrate Hawkins to authorize the payables as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Tice and seconded by Magistrate Hounds to surplus old voting machines to scrap as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Hounds and seconded by Magistrate Tice to authorize the Judge Executive to sign the proclamation on April 2nd, 2021 as Arbor Day in Oldham County as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Jim Urban, Director of Planning and Development Services, presented for second reading public hearing proposed ordinance KOC 21-360-201, repealing and replacing ordinance KOC 06-360-411 relating to flood damage prevention. Discussion followed. Motion made by Magistrate Greenwell and seconded by Magistrate Logston to adopt ordinance KOC 21-360-201, repealing and replacing ordinance KOC 06-360-41 relating to flood damage prevention as submitted. Discussion followed. Judge Executive Vogel opened the floor to public comment. There being none, the public hearing was closed. Motion carried unanimously. Thomas McIntyre, Senior Planner of Planning and Development Services, presented for second reading public hearing ordinance KOC 21-910-71 to repeal and replace the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan in its entirety, containing both the goals and objectives statements and plan elements, replacing ordinance KOC 13-120-399. Motion made by Magistrate Harrison and seconded by Magistrate Logston to adopt ordinance KOC 21-910-71 to repeal and replace the Oldham County Comprehensive Plan in its entirety, containing both the goals and objectives, statements, and plan elements, replacing ordinance KOC 13-120-399 as submitted. Judge Executive Vogel opened to the floor to public comment. There being none, the public hearing was closed. Discussion followed. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Hawkins and seconded by Magistrate Logston to accept the amendments to paragraph H of the waste hauling contract with Public Services as submitted. Discussion followed. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Greenwell and seconded by Magistrate Logston to pass resolution number 01-03-16-21 as it relates to the annual transportation of non-public school students as submitted. Discussion followed. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Tice and seconded by Magistrate Hawkins to authorize the Judge Executive to sign the contract with ATC Group Services Louisville for the surface water quality monitoring within Oldham County watersheds in the amount of $9,400 as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Greenwell and seconded by Magistrate Logston to authorize the Judge Executive to sign the 2021 Deceased Farm Animal Removal DAR grant application and any other related forms for this grant, and to authorize Polly Helton, Animal Control Director, to act as the DAR grant administrator as submitted. Discussion followed. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Hawkins and seconded by Magistrate Helms to authorize the Judge Executive to sign the resolution to apply and administer the Kentucky Association of Mitigation Managers CAM grant program, which would provide between $500 and $4,000 of funding for the Curry's Fork watershed program as submitted. Discussion followed. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Helms and seconded by Magistrate Dye to award the contract for the IT and storage room addition construction project to Geotour Buckner in the amount of $331,400 as submitted. Discussion followed. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Helms and seconded by Magistrate Logston to award the contract to Seven Seas Construction for the Oldham County Fiscal Court Building Sidewalk Replacement Project in the amount of $220,686.96 as submitted. Discussion followed. Motion carried 7-1 with Magistrate Dye voting no. Motion made by Magistrate Dye and seconded by Magistrate Greenwell to approve the Oldham County Conservation District budget as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Magistrate Hawkins and seconded by Magistrate Helms to hire Amberly Green for Dispatch Telecommunicator 2 at $21.52 an hour, effective 3/24/2021 as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Motion made by Judge Executive Vogel and seconded by Magistrate Greenwell to reappoint Grant Abbott to the Oldham County Tourism Commission with a term to expire 4/3/2024 as submitted. Motion carried unanimously. Rosalind Streeter, resident of Westport, spoke in regards to Schambach Park and asked for plans to be shared by the fiscal court, which include trees. She commented there are more than 350 signatures from people in an online petition concerned about the tree removal plan at Schambach Park. Magistrate Hawkins asked Ms. Streeter about the petition. Ms. Streeter explained another concerned Westport resident put together a petition in support of keeping the trees until there's a plan for Schambach Park. Magistrate Harrison asked Ms. Streeter if the petition has been screened to find out how many respondents have an Oldham County zip code, and if it may be pared down further to see how many respondents have a 40070 zip code. He commented the petition is skewed by respondents who do not live in the area. Ms. Streeter responded that people all over the county, the state, the region, and the country use the park. The park is open to everyone and anyone who has a vested interest, a vested concern, as an equally important people. Motion made by Magistrate Dye and seconded by Magistrate Tice to adjourn the meeting. Motion carried unanimously. The meeting adjourned at 4:34 p.m.
You've heard the reading of our minutes from March 16th. Are there any corrections? Magistrate Harrison.
On the last page, the zip code for Westport.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Same. All right, carries. All right, time now for the our report here on the COVID update from our Oldham County Health Director, Matt Rhodes. Since this is the first meeting that we have had actually in person since Matt began working in the health department last November. Nice to see you in person, and on this report we're looking at each other on Zoom, and that's convenient, but it's not quite as great as being. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invite. I'm glad to be here. And I'm going to be quick because I have good news to share as it relates to the COVID virus and case counts. And we are in the midst of 1,000 appointment clinic over at the department right now where we're administering vaccines. I want to get back to the team as quickly as possible. But I do have encouraging news to share. As I said, getting a bit of an echo here, but as I said, the case counts are continuing down. This week, I think marks either week 11 or 12 of decreasing case counts, which is a positive and encouraging sign. That is a bit different from what was seen across the state. They did see a slight uptick with case counts this past week, and there were several counties that saw upticks with case counts. So we're monitoring that closely here locally to make sure that we don't have what most people are worried about as this fourth wave. We suspect that if we continue with our increased vaccination rates and people continue to try to follow safeguards such as social distancing and wearing masks and shared company and so forth, that we'll continue to see this positive trend as it relates to cases. This slide deck will be brief because we've shared a lot of this information throughout the weeks. You can see that our total case count as of today is 7,340. We have increased to 85 deaths, and you can see how that compares to the state of Kentucky and the United States. Our case fatality rate is 1.2%, lower than the state of Kentucky and the United States, and I think that speaks to our overall health as a population here in Oldham County. Again, this is a diagram of the labs, the positive lab reporting, and you can see as we've trended from the start of the new year to now, we're continuing to trend down with regard to positive labs, which represent cases in our community. This is a further illustration of that. We continue to trend down, which is a good thing. Case status here is the total case count, which is 6,858, I think, and you can see 700 and it's like 92 probable cases. So small print, hard to see. This is the age distribution of cases for the county. We've shared this throughout time and stayed consistent. Racial distribution, which this slide doesn't present the necessary information because there's a lot of labs that do not include this racial data, which it creates a challenge for us to be able to verify what the racial breakdown of cases actually are in our community. Total case count, as you can see, we still are trending predominantly higher in males as opposed to females. 4,650 males and 2,593 females. And you'll see just the opposite of that as it relates to vaccination rates. The average age of our cases is 42, and you can see racial and ethnicity breakdowns there. Some interesting data as it relates to the COVID-19 cases. 209 reported being healthcare workers. We've got 174 hospitalized, 67 in ICU, and 7,024 with COVID. And this is the total death count. You can see that in long-term care facilities, we've had 40 deaths. Corrections associated deaths equals 31, and then our community deaths are 14. These are the vaccine providers in Oldham County, and I'm happy to report that there's enough vaccine in our community now that if you want to get a vaccine, you can find a vaccine. Unfortunately, we did have about 50 unfilled appointments for our 1,000-dose clinic today, so really want to encourage people to continue seeking vaccines. These are the 6 providers, in addition to the Oldham County Health Department, that are providing vaccines. Key points in this data was, as of last week, 17,841 Oldham County residents. Doses have been administered. That's the total dose that has increased to over 20,000 as of today. These data points keep moving daily because we are administering vaccine at a higher clip than we were before. And you can see the total residents with completed vaccine series, meaning they're fully vaccinated, is over 7,000. And this is our vaccine distribution. You can see for those receiving 1 dose of Moderna and Pfizer, and then also J&J, Johnson & Johnson. It's just a further breakdown of the previous slide. And these are all the vaccine being provided to Oldham County residents by the various providers. There are a lot of providers providing vaccine now, so if you want to get vaccinated, we certainly encourage you to seek vaccine. We really want to focus on the population 60 and over, as the evidence clearly shows those 60 and over have a much greater risk of serious disease or death. In Oldham County, we can break it down and look at the 65 and older population, and we know that roughly 50% of that population has been vaccinated, and we would like to encourage more individuals to get vaccinated so that we can cut down on the risk of dying or having serious illness. I think the common concern has been hospitalizations and death as it relates to this virus. If we can continue to tamp down the risk associated with that, we'll be able to get back to a normal state. Vaccination rates by gender, as I pointed out earlier, you can see more females are being vaccinated in Oldham County than males. We want to push communication to encourage the males to get vaccinated because we're seeing a higher rate of cases in our males. And these are some of our high-risk groups that we've broken down. We just have count data. And you can see our 70 plus, we've gotten quite a few, and then you add in the 60 to 69. Again, we're about 50% of that population. We'd really like to see increased rates in that population. And this is some of our baseline vaccination along racial breakdown. And this is a lot of pictures from our department that's been providing the vaccine clinics. And I think if you've heard any feedback from the community, they've been very fondly received, and the efficiency at which we're able to get people vaccinated is beyond compare. This speaks to Oldham County residents proper, the total Oldham County residents vaccinated. It's just further breakdown, and I can share these slides with you, but the primary objective here is to encourage greater vaccination rates by our community and to say that we're continuing to trend down with our case count. So I'll answer any questions.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Pat, for your presentation. Am I understand correctly, if someone gets vaccinated outside of Oldham County, does that statistic get back?
It does. It's reported into the Kentucky Immunization Registry. The one caveat being is that the federal providers do not enter data into that system, so the individuals getting vaccinated at the VA, I know that was asked last time by Albert, we're not recording those, so we'll be able to gather that information when we work with the state. But everything that's being administered by most of those other providers that I shared is being entered back into the immunization registry, and we're able to pull that.
So the question was asked a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully that didn't have to answer it. I figured I'd ask you a different. Is someone going to be able to go to the health department and get COVID vaccine records in the future if needed? Is that's what we're gauging towards? I mean, is there going to be a process, not to put you on the spot, but I mean, is that something that is coming down the road?
Yes, we will be able to access that immunization registry and pull that data, so long as the entity that provided that vaccine enters it into the immunization registry. And if not, we'll be able to advise where they can go get that information.
I know we talked about this, or I know you mentioned it a while back, but you're okay now with schools and that going ahead and putting back up basketball goals, and when I say opening for business, I don't mean full-fledged, but trying to, like we were talking about before the meeting, get the kids outside so they can get some exercise. You're okay with the basketball goals back up and such?
Yes, we're fooling ourselves if we think kids aren't already congregating, so if they can get some physical exercise while they're doing that, it would be better. And obviously we want to be smart about it, put up the appropriate signage to advise, but yes, I think it's safe to go ahead and start moving in that direction. Yes, sir, Mr. Harris.
We have several residents who live in Louisville, but they're not in the Oldham County zip code. And we're outside the county, we do have the Oldham County zip code. Is some county procedure that addresses that, or how is it set?
We're able would go into the immunization registry and determine based on zip code. And I'd actually have to get with my epidemiologist to know if there are other discerning variables that they can determine if they're Oldham County resident specific. But we can definitely pull it by zip code and determine if they've been vaccinated in that zip code. If it's a zip code that falls within Oldham County, it could be counted as an Oldham County resident, or vice versa if they fall in the Jefferson area.
But the number's gonna be so small, almost be insignificant.
I would think that it would not reach statistical significance.
Manager Likens.
Matt, I've heard that after your first dose of Moderna, you're 50%, and then the second dose of 95. Is there any data on somebody that's had both doses that's come up with COVID afterwards, or what happens?
Yes, there is data. The state is actually gathering that data. And what the evidence shows very clearly is that if you have been fully vaccinated, your risk of severe disease or hospitalization is diminished greatly. So they're what they refer to as breakthrough cases, but there are cases where the state is tracking. As of the last time we met, it was in a couple hundred cases. It may be greater than that now, but those breakthrough cases are being tracked, and the hospitalization rates and the severity of disease is being tracked, and it's much lower than people that have not been vaccinated.
It's still out there. My brother and his girlfriend both got it 2 weeks ago, 2 days before they were going to get their vaccine, so it's still here.
It's still circulating through the community, so I want to certainly urge caution and urge the vaccination rates. It's not as high as it was before, but if you don't practice those safeguards, you can certainly pick up the virus and it can be transmitted.
I'd like you to reiterate, you mentioned that you had openings, you had all of the vaccination facilities experiencing the same thing, where we have openings, we have more than we can call on.
I talked to some of the providers this week, and they said that they were all filled through this week, but that their appointments for next week, they had seen a slowing of the appointment registrations. We're going to post 1,000 appointments tomorrow for next week, so I'll be able to give you more inside information as it relates to our appointment registrations, but I'm concerned that I'm starting to see a slowing of registrations by our residents.
So we're moving off the posting on first day of the month every week now.
Yes, what we said, and we still are going to post that first day of the month, the first business day of the month, but then as vaccine becomes available, as we said that we were going to post as that becomes available. And what we found is if we post more than 2 weeks out, that there's such a high cancellation rate that it's not in our best interest. It creates a great deal of administrative work. So we're posting weekly 1,000 doses and trying to encourage people to sign up within that week.
Cancellation, that recent vaccine.
As soon as they cancel, our system is dynamic enough that it posts that appointment back to the site and individuals can go on and register.
All right, well, we may be running into the point where, let's say, resistance to vaccine. We've got people who are willing to do it. But this morning I met someone who hadn't had a shot yet, and ambivalent about it. I had two and had no issues whatsoever. So a little bit tired the next day, but illness, patients are I was sick. And but I have heard some people do that.
There's been, I think, 1.4 million doses administered in the state of Kentucky, and there have been no major adverse reactions. We have had individuals who have had side effects, but they usually resolve in 2 to 4 days. So it's a safe and effective vaccine, and the virus is still circulating throughout our community, so one way that we sure to be protected is by getting that vaccine.
All right, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you being here today. Thank you, staff, for the background. Next item on our agenda today is a presentation from the Oldham County Community Foundation regarding the program they'd like to bring to Oldham County. It's called Glean Kentucky. Here today is the president of our Oldham County Community Foundation, Lori Ann Roberts. I believe she has a person from Glean Kentucky with her, Ben South. Welcome, Lori.
Thank you so very much. We're going to come one at a time so we can take these off while we talk to you. It's much easier.
I can come down just a little bit.
I can do that. How's that? Thank you so much, and I especially want to thank Denise Clark for her assistance in getting us here and getting our materials to you so that we could make a good presentation for you. 2 years ago in 2000, well, let's go back. 4 years ago, Fiscal Court gave us a donation for Operation Parent, which enabled us to do brochures for at-risk fourth graders' parents, helping them guide their education conversations with their children for behaviors that were no longer in high school, no longer middle school, and reached down into elementary school. 2018, 2019, we again approached Fiscal Court, and we're given funding for a workforce development program. The funding that we were going to use for that program was to help provide logistics, bus service, to get a pocket of population in LaGrange to the Arvin Center, where they would have the opportunity to gain necessary skills to help them find good employment, strong employment, career employment. Unfortunately, COVID hit, and that program didn't need a bus service anymore. However, I'm happy to report Kentuckiana Works was able to translate that program to an online process, and they're having some good results with some good numbers coming in. As a result of that, we notified Judge Vogel that we did not need the allocation that you had given to us. However, not one to ever walk away from funding that we know might be available. We also knew that there is a gathering need in Oldham County, and that is for food distribution. We know that we have 4 food banks here in Oldham County, and that they are over capacity with people in need. We know that unemployment has grown dramatically in the past year in Oldham County, even though it remains one of the lowest areas of the state as far as unemployment. But what we have found is that while the food banks can contribute as far as box food, canned food, one of the items that they have difficulty in gathering is fresh food. One of the ways we found this so strong as a comment for us was last year we had a group called Perfect Path, and I happened to notice an article in the paper about it and turned P.J. Conniff onto it, who's one of the foundation chairs looking at this logistics concern of ours. And she at the time was the head of the Red Cross Board of Directors. They quickly volunteered to be the site because that was the difficulty. We had a semi coming into town, but we had no site for distribution. And in one day, out of the Oldham County Red Cross, we arranged for the distribution of 1,250 boxes of fresh food to Oldham County residents. So we know the need's there. We know that the ability is there to have food distributed, but what we need to have is a way of gathering that food, of gleaning that food from different resources. So we did our research, and we came across an organization called Glean Kentucky. Glean Kentucky, I'm happy to report, has an executive director that graduated from North Oldham High School. Very proud of them. It's like the Oldham County Community Foundation, a young organization, like us, a little bit over a decade old. I brought with me today Ben Southworth, who is their program director, and he's been there for 5 years. And he'd like an opportunity to go over the program with you. And with that, we would respectfully request an allocation over the next 3 years of $10,000 per year over the next 3 years. At the end of 3 years, and this is what our affiliate does with our initiatives, we work to gather funders together to put programs in place, give them a little bit of a breathing room to get their legs going. And that way they have the opportunity to begin their process of being self-sustaining without a cloud over their shoulder of what am I going to do this year. So we are trying to put together a process of gathering gathering funds at this point. We have committed, out of the 115,000 funds, we have committed a little over 55,000 funds. Of that, we have gifts coming in from the Humana Foundation and from Chase Bank Foundation, as well as some private individuals. We have asked out to a few different groups that were not far enough along in the process that we can release their names, but we have high hopes for. Each of them have ties to Oldham County. We really feel that this is a program that has significant impact and as a result of Fiscal Court joining us as a partner in pushing this forward out to the community. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Ben and let him talk and answer questions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your time today. As Lorianne mentioned, my name is Ben Southwood. I'm the program director at Lincoln, Kentucky. I've been there about 5 years. I oversee our programming, which means that I have the good fortune of working with all of our farmers, our orchard owners, our farmers market administrators, grocery store clerks, as well as thousands of volunteers throughout Kentucky, as well as plenty of representatives at different agencies throughout Kentucky who receive produce at the end of this whole process. To give you just a really bare bones idea of what Green Kentucky is and what we do, we are the connector between excess fruits and vegetables and people who need it. So we work with orchard, farmers markets, grocery stores, home gardens, anyone that has or deals in any way with fresh fruits and vegetables and who has extra of it sitting around. We work through the use of volunteers to connect that to agencies who need it. So food banks, food pantries, homeless shelters, soup kitchens, refugee ministries, church, school backpack programs. Our program is designed not to step over or step on to any other existing programs, but merely to supplement them with fresh fruits and vegetables to make that program better and more effective. We did a program evaluation concluded back in January where we asked all of our recipient agencies to tell us about the impact about green produce on their programs. 59% said that Green Kentucky was the only source of sold produce that they had, or sole source of fresh fruits and vegetables that they had. 96% said that they were able to serve more nutritious meals and a greater variety of food to their clients because of what they received from Green Kentucky. 73% said that they were able to serve more people because of the produce they received from Green Kentucky. And one that I really liked is 50% said that they were able to save money because of the food they received from us. So they then put that money towards other things that they do, child worship, basic human needs, helping people pay their electric or heating bills or things like that. So I'm excited to see that that's starting to offset and help people to address poverty on a more broad scope instead of just addressing hunger, but we're helping people do more than that. To give you all an idea of what we have envisioned for Oldham County, I'll let you know too that we started a new chapter down in South Central Kentucky back in September. It's been going for 6 or 7 months now. It's the first field coordinator position we've hired outside of Dade County in the 11 years we've been around, and we're hoping to replicate that again up here in Oldham County. That person's already been gleaning. I think she's gleaned with volunteers 35 or 40 times. She's gleaning on a weekly basis with a few farmers markets in the area, and as the growing season kicks off this year, I think she's going to be gleaning more and more and really making that impact. So in year one, the idea that we have is that this person would be doing a lot of outreach, that they would be doing some meet and greets, that they would be out speaking to churches, tabling at every volunteer fair, every community event that they could get invited to, finding volunteers to help make this work, making connections with people with produce, and then starting to connect those up with people who need it, with the food banks that Lorianne mentioned, and as well with community members who know their neighbors, who live in areas where there are food insecure people, and that they are able to work directly with their neighbors to get that food on their doorstep, and drive through the neighborhood and load it out of their car. Year two, the idea is to continue this work, this outreach, but to continue also to build capacity, to start building things up, deepening relationships with farmers, with orchard owners, getting invited to more and more places to glean, and also deepening our pool of volunteer gleaners to build greater sustainability. And then year 3, as Lori alluded to, is really focusing on pivoting towards sustainability, making this so that we don't have to come back here in 3 years and ask for more funding, but we can come back and ask for less funding or none at all, because we'll have more community buy-in, both in Oldham County and in the surrounding counties. What we envision long term is that this person would be sort of at the center of a hub that would be serving Oldham and the surrounding counties. These first 3 years would be dedicated to Oldham County, but we can start to build a regional presence and help more and more people in this region. There's a lot of good produce being grown around here. I've been to Gowran Farms in Shelby County. I've been to Ayers Orchard up in Owen County. There's a lot of good produce, and we hate to see it waste on what farmers do too. But that's about the long and short of what we do, and I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have, or I'll continue on.
So, I just would like to ask for clarification here. This is a program to organize, and I say organize a program to gather food that would normally go to waste, not be used, so by grocery stores or by producers, to funnel that into the food banks to help people have fresh, sustainable food.
I'm sort of in that subject, I carried it away, but how do you, what do you do about, let's just say you go to the park, and you mentioned the orchard. How do you get packaging and then transportation? I don't know how much stuff you put, but is that, how much does that impact the value of what you're doing? Maybe, spend a lot of money on transportation and packaging, or some of the guys already got stuff there, and people volunteer, or whatever. Transportation is a big side of anything in grocery.
Yeah, I'd say beyond our staffing cost, transportation is definitely the second biggest cost we have. We have allocated on the second page of the budget in the third year cost to acquire a van. I also have been working with some other groups to hopefully get that done sooner than later and outside of this whole funding proposal. But yeah, we were also pretty good at getting people to donate things, packaging, whether that's reusable plastic crates that we get from food banks, Kroger or Walmart. And then as far as most of the transportation goes, we rely on volunteers. Use their own personal vehicles for appointed.
You don't do a lot of large trips, like you mentioned something earlier, but like truckload lots or anything.
I'd say about the biggest glean we typically do is between 2 and 3 tons.
Mr. Dawkins.
Perhaps I missed it. Are you a 501c3 company? Okay. And this is a question probably for the judge. If there is good for money today over the next 3 years, what's the difference between going about it this way and then going through the grants?
What?
Rather than going through the grants committee?
Well, what we have here is a program that was approved by the court that did not actually get implemented because of it. I think that they're asking today to have the remaining funds from what was allocated to the workforce development program be approved to go as the first year of this program. So that's really what you're asking today, would you say? Is that fair analysis? So the entire court did approve the workforce development program. So we can go back to the grants committee, but I thought it was worthwhile for everybody to hear with the grants committee process. We're pretty far along the line on that at this point. Okay, and that 12.5 is allocated to the workforce development program is kind of suspended out there. Lori asked earlier if I could shift that over to this, and I said unfortunately I can't. The entire court is doing something different. So that's why we brought it back to the entire court today. And we can continue wait our new cycle here, our new fiscal year, beginning July 1. Consider a 3-year funding program at that time, or some alternative things the court might want to do. First thing, I guess everybody has to want everybody to hear for themselves and make a judgment on this program that they think is one that they'd like to see implemented in Oldham County. And I know you already have some head start. I believe I didn't quite follow exactly what you were saying, but you said the Humana Foundation or
We've already raised approximately $55,000 in funds needed to start a total of $115,000. If we have the ability to have a vehicle given to us, then that would come off the overall budget. That's slated to be if we were having the ability to have that happen sooner, then we have the opportunity to take the funds that are in the budget right now for vehicle reimbursement.
Do you already have a cargo van in mind that you can get for 15 days? I've got a bunch of kids and I've looked at them and I've never, for 15 days.
maybe Lori, can you maybe come on to the front?
No. So I know that we can get a used cargo van for in the ballpark of $15,000 to $16,000. I did meet last week with the group of statewide fraternal organization who's interested in helping us hire a van for here as well as for South Central Kentucky. We have a cap of $100,000 that they can spend. Hopefully it's going to work out. We're not going to go with them. I think the Colonels are always a great fast reminder for that kind of thing.
And then what about the transportation need that this money was supposed to go to the building? Is that need not there anymore? Or?
We anticipate that when the Arvin Center is finally open for outside students to come into the building, that Kentuckiana Works is going to continue to do this program online for the immediate future. We don't see it going back to being an in-person program. We also are having continuing conversations with the Arvin Center and the Board of Education about what could be done as an alternative for this program. But for right now, it's on pause for us because we feel that what Kentuckiana Works is doing is having some success with.
If you recall, the Kentuckiana Works program, the Community Foundation supported prior to this, was intended primarily for incarcerated individuals to get a job. The Department of Corrections is refusing to let anybody on period. So that basically stopped that in its tracks. Although Ken would be in there.
I think too that program was also targeted there towards a population in the city of LaGrange itself that is around LaGrange Elementary School. And one of the things we found, for example, was the principal of LaGrange Elementary School stepped forward and said, people aren't going to go to class in the evening because they don't have daycare. I'll keep my daycare open a little later so that we can go to class. We also found that some people were doing private vehicles over there and not riding the bus transportation that was provided for a short period of time. So we were one cog of a larger program, but it was a valuable program and it was important to start. But as we found through COVID, that it was not something that needed to be carried on. Because of COVID, this is a program that has seen a great gain of need for our residents in Oldham County, not just in the city of LaGrange, but throughout Oldham County. I had a conversation with the pastor over in North Oldham at the food bank there at Grace and Glory, and she told me last fall that her numbers had gone up 120% of people that needed to use food. The Oldham County Community Foundation last year authorized an additional $4,000 that went directly to the food banks outside of our regular grant program because we saw the need increase so dramatically. So the importance is not just getting food, but getting nutritious food, and this is an outlet for it.
Clarification on this. Are you saying that the money that we initially allocated when we began to work, because we COVID, everything got, on the back burner, or they didn't burn it at all? Well, that money hasn't been spent, or it has been spent?
Yes.
Not been spent. So you want to dovetail that money into this program? That's right.
That's right. We don't necessarily have to decide that right this minute. Two of the three members of the grants committee are here today, so they're hearing the presentation along with everybody else. So, the decision doesn't have to be made at this moment. That funding is good.
My question to you today would be the same I had to work, which I think is a great program. There's a lot of people in food bank, and I think sometimes they're competition with one another. There's only so much stuff that you can get out of it. The fresh produce is spent on that, not anywhere else.
And I think it hasn't exactly come out maybe as strongly as what I believe it should be here today, is that this is a program that was begun in the Lexington area and is very successful there and is being exported. I know you said you worked in Fayette County, but that's where it originated, and trying to take it out to other areas.
It's also important to note that when I first approached Judge Ogle about this program, he did a canvas of the area food banking programs in the county to see if we would be doing something that overlapped, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And what he found was that this is something that they could use.
Grace and Glory said they could use it. The High Point said they could use it. The Tri-County Community Action Agency wasn't quite as much on it, but they get their meals paid for it. They have meals delivered. Managed to like it.
If I recall the numbers, we had approved $25,000 for the workforce development and two payments. And I think we did the $12,500, and the other $12,500 was apparently not spent as they closed down their program. So that's what we're working with. I don't know if this needs to be picked back to the grants committee to decide how we allocate the $12,500 rather than make a decision today without seeing who else might be in line for the money we have available, and make sure it's still in the budget.
Well, it's in the budget. It hasn't been spent. It's sitting there, and we could help them with 1 year. We could help you now, not commit to 2 or 3. And we'll find in our resource, our grants committee could look at 2 and 3, or we could just wait a little bit, and the grants committee could discuss it and see what approach we want to take. I think it's a very worthy program, and we normally have a process here, but the process is not being short-circuited. It's just the fact that the entire group is familiar with what the allocation was prior to this, and we have been able to execute that part of year 2 of that program.
I think one thing that for us lends itself to going ahead and requesting the allocation and then going back to grants committee for year 2 and 3 is the fact that we are entering well into the growing season. So in addition to having somebody on staff who is going out and collecting volunteers, leading the volunteers, we also have the ability to begin immediately doing the food that is needed at this time.
Thank you. Now,
But I think that it's a worthy cause, since we haven't spent that money on the transportation piece, that it's probably best to send it back to the grants committee and use the grants committee to come back with a recommendation, hopefully, just with the money that we haven't used thus far. And again, we can do another run of this for the next fiscal year. I guess one question I have for you folks is that this is obviously the first time I've seen this, so I saw it here today. What are you doing to get the word out? Because it seemed like the farm community was in Oldham County, the farmers market that we have in the Grange, or the farmers market in Norton Commons, there's a farmers market over on 42 at Wolf Pen Branch, was twice a week. And it seemed like there would be some opportunities there that you could get your hands on.
So this is where we are, to use an old analogy of which comes first, chicken or the egg. Because we are a community foundation with limited resources, we cannot front funds for this organization. What we have to do is gather a community of force that we can serve. We have an accountability process where we will not do our memorandum of understanding until we reach a certain level of financing secured, either in hand or written commitments for the following 2 years. We're not there yet. We need to get there in order for us to take advantage of this growing system as well as the farmers markets currently in place. Lean, we've been told, has the ability to move quickly to get the process moving forward fast.
So what happens if we were to do the 15,600 or 12,500 that we've already had allocated, and you don't get the rest of the money, does the money come back to us then, and we reallocate to another project?
Until that time that we have the funds in place, our memorandum of understanding would not be complete with any of the organizations. Some organizations, such as Humana and Chase, have faith in our organization and have already put the funds in hand to us. If we do not have a success in starting the program, we would return the funds to them. If you were to go ahead and allocate the existing funds to us now, and we did not use them, we would of course return them to you.
If you don't have your funding in place, and what's the time I'm looking at?
Right now, 3 of the 4 asks I have out, I hope to have the answer by Monday.
So at the end of our fiscal year.
As you like.
Judge, I think we have a grants committee meeting coming up. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but we won't sit on it. But I think if we don't take it back to the grants committee, not to say that you all did anything wrong, but we'll have 15 other organizations coming up here trying to get us to do something similar to this. We will have a meeting scheduled. So that's coming up in 2 weeks, and we'll take this up.
We will, of course, keep you updated as far as any in-hand firm commitments that we receive.
Right. We normally don't entertain a direct appeal, it's only because we've already allocated the funding items to today to make this presentation to everybody. So, because they all agreed to spend it earlier for the workforce development. Measure that.
I really imagine, I think this needs to go back to grants because we don't want to set two different standards of excellence. Here. I think that's, I don't want anybody else, it's a worthy cause, don't get me wrong, but I don't want the other people, the other things that 50, I think, I want to like them. Let's treat that, let's make everybody say,
Little grants committee will make this up. We'll do that. All right. Thank you very much.
Take your time.
Yes, sure.
I believe we had 19 applicants this year, which is much more than any other year in the past. In case anybody was wondering.
The next person on our agenda here, apparently, is Kim Butler-Hines. I was just kidding, I know you are, so Kim, I've heard about tourism for a while, so welcome.
screen is missing. I'm going to tell you something. This is the second in-person presentation I've done, and it amazes me at how nervous I've become after a year of getting used to Zoom. And I never thought I'd be a nervous wreck, but I'm nervous. Okay. The last time I was before fiscal court was February. So if you remember correctly, we were talking about hotels being 7-8 months behind paying taxes, and we were getting all of that squared away. And but so over the last year, that has gotten caught up for the most part. You know, we have a couple hotels that are a month or two behind, but that's not really that big of a deal. Our taxes are due the 20th of the month, so what hotels are behind now is not anything out of the ordinary. But what also came out of that, COVID happened 2 weeks later. So that changed everything as far as tourism in the county, and changed a lot about that conversation. So what became clear to me is that I need to be a lot more forthcoming with you all about what tourism does, because there were a couple conversations that it was evident that you all really didn't know what we did, because our focus was outside the county. That's what our job was outside the county. If there was a lot happening in the county that you knew about, then we weren't doing our jobs. I mean, but you asked 5 states, and that was our job. So in this fiscal year 21, I wanted to be able to come back to let you know what a normal year in tourism is. That was the original plan. But now you get to hear a year in tourism during COVID. And hopefully you'll learn a little bit about tourism, and I'm going to come back at a different time and talk about our budget and our marketing plan and all of that as things start to open up. So this is a year in the life of the Oldham County Tourism from March last year till today. So hopefully it'll be a little entertaining as well. The major thing in the tourism industry was a huge pivot. Like I said, our job is to promote the tourists and the travelers. That's what we did. If we didn't bring in tourists who stayed in our accommodations, not just hotels, then we didn't make and replace our transient room tax that we collect. It's our sole funding. In our case, our sole funding. Some communities it's not, but ours it is. So we had to do a pivot and figure out what that was going to look like, and not just for a community standpoint, but from our attractions and our restaurants and our hotels and our 20, as of today, 20 tax collecting properties in the county. It's not just about 5 hotels. So we had to figure out how to help all of our attractions and help our tourism industry stay alive when the tourism industry in general was the most affected by COVID. If you follow the paper and you follow the news, you would see that Louisville tourism is down 83%. That's devastated Louisville tourism. The upside for us is we aren't devastated. We didn't get fully devastated. Up until I just spoke with our largest hotel a couple days ago, and they still maintained, even more so than 2019 tax rates in collections. So through the winter, that kind of started to slow down. Now it's all starting to pick up. But surprisingly enough, as you'll find out in the presentation in a couple months with our budget, our Airbnb properties really picked up. So I've addressed that in here too, so you'll get a little more education about that. So our pivot in the tourism industry was, what can we do for the community? What can we do to keep our businesses alive so we would have something to offer for tourism after? So we pivoted to community outreach, and we helped where we could in the community. And sometimes you'll see in the presentation was a lot of going to organizations and saying, this is how we as tourism can help your organization. So the very first thing we had to do was figure out a way to be able to disseminate all the COVID-19 updates that, not just in the tourism industry, but luckily for us, a couple years ago, we put together a Facebook page, a Facebook group called Oldham County Attraction Owners, and that became a good way for me to collect information from all of our attractions. There are over 100 in this group, so I didn't have to pick up the phone and call everybody when I needed information. So that came in handy during COVID when everything was shut down. Also at that same time, several years ago, we did a Facebook page called Your Own Backyard Oldham County, which came in handy during COVID. That Facebook page was for events and information that were important to people who lived here, but not necessarily something that we would put on the Tour Oldham County KY Facebook page that a tourist would care about from out of town, like Oldham County Day. You know, that's not really a tourism event. If somebody happens to be in town, fine, but that's not an event that would draw people in. So those type of events, then that's what we put on Your Own Backyard Oldham County. So that page came in handy. But we were constantly disseminating PPP information and COVID restrictions because restaurants and hotels and attractions and small groups and events, all of that is tourism. You might not think about it, but all of that is tourism. So that's why the tourism industry was so affected by COVID and so devastated. So luckily for us, even to the point where we were able to have small groups of less than 25, proved to be beneficial for us in the market that we've already started to bring into the county in the last 7 years. One new thing, obviously, was we did regular Zoom meetings with all of our accommodations and attractions, and as we got information from U.S. Tourism, even that affected hotels, that was cleaning suggestions and new products and new equipment that was available, all of that we disseminated through the tourism office to all of our tourism industry. One of the very first projects that we did in our community outreach program was our community mask program. And we did this program from the third week of March all the way through September. And we gathered about 24 women who made handmade masks, and we got everybody a good pattern to go by that worked for everybody. And we developed and coordinated weekly production and delivery of all those masks. And we've done 14,000 plus. I always have a case in the trunk of my car still to this day, and I still give masks. I was even able to give them to nursing homes right over the Oldham County line when they were not getting them there. So we did all of the nursing homes. We did all of Tri-County Community Action Meals on Wheels when I found out in a delivery that when the meals were being delivered, seniors were coming to the door with towels over their mouth because masks weren't making their way to their homes. So we did all of the Meals on Wheels from March through September. The churches, as they requested them, we did them, and then Judge Vogel got some from us when the county government office started to reopen at the very beginning. So we still do that. We still, as people need them, they're pretty much readily available now commercially, but we still do them. And I always, if you know somebody that needs some and you need a handful of them, I always have some in the trunk of my car. So we did that March to September. We organized that and managed the whole process of that. And we also did work with that through the health department, which is not on there. Another thing we did immediately was go to our new Holiday Inn Express and Suites, and the GM there, Damien, is so awesome to work with. We came up with a program that would allow for businesses who were sending their people home, people who were not used to working from home, and people who had kids at home that were going to have to be now homeschooled and everybody was getting used to Zoom. So what we did was put together a program where residents who were not accustomed or not set up to work from home at the very beginning, they could rent a room at the hotel, not get breakfast or any of that, but just have nice space. And you keep in mind that was you know, our hotel is brand new, it just opened in July of 19. So they could have their Zoom meetings there, they could have secure meetings there, use the internet. And then we worked out that if they needed lunch, so they wouldn't have to leave their office, and in my normal deliveries on Thursday, we would deliver boxed lunches to the people staying at the hotel in the private office space. So we did that from March to December. So another one that we did was during our mask program with Community Action, what we then started to realize in May that a lot of their clients were going through had serious issues with depression. And with seniors, it was a big deal because the only people they were seeing in person were their meal deliveries. That was it. So we approached the Crestwood Civic Club. They had an annual plant sale every year. So we approached the Crestwood Civic Club to see, in lieu of that plant sale, if they would help us develop forget-me-not packets for Mother's Day for all of these seniors who got Meals on Wheels. So we did these forget-me-not seed packets, so they had something interactive to do and something that they could watch grow and then afterwards plant outside or whatever and reminisce later. But we also did homemade Mother's Day cards for them. So every delivery in Meals on Wheels in Tri-County, in all 3 counties, got Mother's Day cards and seed kits for Mother's Day. Another project we did was we provided firehouse meals for the South Oldham Fire Department during the Crusade for Children's collections. We cooked and took food over for that. Another awesome program we did was called the Hometown Tourist Staycation. And at the time that this was created, this was May and June, people were being sent home, and obviously we had travel bans, people couldn't take their vacations, we had people who were on limited income, people had already started to lose their job and be downsized as a result of COVID. So I called all the attractions to see if there was some way that we could get our hometown people out about in the county to do attractions that they have never done, because we're a bedroom community and they're so used to doing everything in Louisville. And I thought of them as a tourist and not being out and about in the community. So July through September, it was originally July through August 1st, and it was expanded to September because Derby moved to September. We did put together, you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, a passport we put together with all of our tourism attractions who wanted to participate, and quite honestly, I was hoping for 10, and we got 20. Each attraction donated a freebie souvenir, so they could come to any of the attractions, get their freebie souvenir. They didn't have to pay to do anything. If they went to Udell, they got, for example, a souvenir from their new greenhouse, but they didn't have to pay to get in. If they wanted to pay to get in and tour, they could. So everybody got a chance to get something free for their staycation. When Derby got extended to September, we extended it to September and said, okay, if any visitor from out of town or family member that you have coming in all ready for Derby wants to go with you, because it's tourism, right? As long as they're with you and you're an Oldham County resident, then they can also have a freebie souvenir with theirs. So people downloaded this passport from our website. We marketed it on social media. We got a lot of press out of it, so it didn't cost a whole lot of money to do. We did 24 t-shirts and 11 hats. If they completed all 20. What I thought was interesting, we created its own logo and program and everything, and what I thought was interesting, that was a surprise, was all of the kids who were going to school in August and September. A lot of families in the county used this as a get out and do things with their seniors. They were going to college before they took them and dropped them off. So we actually had 3 families who came into my old office, got t-shirts, and they were dropping their kids off at college wearing their Oldham Hometown Tourist t-shirts. So that was a side benefit that was really cool. So we did 24 t-shirts and 11 hats in the first year. So that was a really successful program. So in all of that, while we were still doing our community outreach and helping where we could, we still had to set the stage for some type of recovery. Because we couldn't do that all the time. We couldn't do community outreach all the time and not be ready when it opened, because we didn't know what that was gonna look like. So we kind of started to set the stage for recovery and to start planning for what that might look like. So while we were still doing the outreach, we were still the entire year of 2020 doing tourism. We negotiated all of our media outlets, and we got double media placements and everything, which was awesome for us because we have such a small budget normally that we got double the media and it didn't cost us anything additional. Plus, we were in a lot of our normal advertising where we would normally compete with Louisville and Paducah and Lexington and Northern Kentucky, and those places pulled everything. So we stayed with it and got double placement. A lot of that was ads plus editorials, so we got a lot of stories written and a lot of history talked about. It was really cool. We built relationships over last year with 3 different PR firms because we knew that was going to be important to the recovery of COVID and tourism recovery. We needed to figure out how we were going to manage that, what we were going to say. We had to figure out press packets and media requests, which we still got media requests all last year. So, and it became really important later, as you'll see. We still continued to host small groups. We didn't do the 50 to 100 groups that I would normally do 20, 25 a year. We did smaller groups. So we did like Ford V8 road show crew came down and we did a 2-day there. We did a developer in the county who's building 400 homes in Oldham County, and they called us to do their whole corporate retreat. So we did a 3-day corporate retreat for that group. We also did media visits. We also, in that process, developed 4 new tourist programs that we could roll out after everything started to recover and people started to travel more. And also in that process, we completely rewrote all of Oldham County's information on Kentucky's website with all of our new programs, all of our updates, and knowing that the state was coming in for co-ops and we had gotten an EBI regional grant. We did, in the fall, we were featured on WHAS One Tank Trips. We had a 3-page spread in RV Magazine in September. We developed 11 money-making tours for Main Street LaGrange in downtown LaGrange based on all the feedback that we have gotten from people through our tourism website. We finalized all of the official visitors guide for Kentucky. All of that information. We finalized the Greater Louisville Relocation Guide, which you see pictures of on the left. All of this is August through November. In that process, our tourism website was getting ready to crash, and we weren't aware. We found out on accident preparing for the other things. So we did a completely new redesign of touroldhamky.com, added a blog component, and then added a media and press library so we could manage all of the media attention that we've been getting the last year. So as a result of all of those 2020 efforts, as busy as we were, in 2 days, we booked 2 motor coach buses in April, 1 VP group out of Colorado, 15 people for Derby. We have a motor coach group in May and 2 already booked in September. We've already booked 40 plus rooms in the next couple of months. In our motor coach buses, it's come be a big deal in our small town, and kind of going off of you're safer in a small town. So New Hermitage, I don't know if you all saw the paper last Thursday. We did a press conference there on something we've been working on. And then this is where the relationships with the PR firms came to be. We've developed a Kentucky bucket list tour, and that's a direct partnership with the Derby Museum. So we had that press release and press conference last Thursday. The Dennis Dowell Barn opened up during COVID in the Maples Park in Crestwood, and there are some new events that we have going on that are brand new. We have 5 Shakespeare in the Park Shakespeare's in the park. And April 17th is the first one, and we'll have Shakespeare in the park early in the day, and then starting at 9:30 will be a live viewing of Thunder Over Louisville, a big 28-foot screen that we're going to have at the park. All that free to the public. There'll be 5 food trucks. Arts on the Green just changed. I don't know if you all know about that. Arts on the Green was going to be at Udell, and because of the restrictions, they got restricted on the number of people that Udell could have, so it moved to the Maples Park. I guess that's been announced publicly. So here are our new 4 tourism projects that we worked on in 2020 to roll out. Some of these we started working on before COVID even hit, but they're finalized. We're going to bring back our hometown tourist staycation because that was so popular. Everybody loved it. We're going to shorten the amount of time this time. So from July 1st to August 31st, we're going to do the hometown tourist staycation. One really cool thing that came out of last year was, why would people come to Oldham County? And you might ask yourself that. Why would tourists come to Oldham County if it's not your family reunion or a wedding? What you might be surprised to find out is we did a Only in Oldham initiative last year. So we did a survey and took an inventory of all the attractions. We did this in June last year. All the attractions in Oldham County, and we said, we're going to do this big press kickoff. What do we have that people can't get anywhere else? What do we have in Oldham County? So then we developed the Only in Oldham initiative for marketing and press recovery stories, because it's all about telling stories. So when we completed the list, Kentucky Tourism immediately added that to their website as an official Kentucky itinerary. So they will now promote that as of 2 months ago. An example of that would be Kentucky Artisan Distillery is the only true farm-to-bottle distillery in Kentucky. Farm to bottle, meaning they grow their grains at Waldeck Mansion in Crestwood. It might surprise you to know that Udell Gardens has the largest hellebore collection in the entire country. So there are 10 places, not 10 things, there are 10 attractions that can only be found in Oldham County, in the region, and a lot of times in the country. So you'll see a complete list of that in a couple months. But that's just to give you 2 examples. The Geotour of Oldham County, we started working on that last February and March, and worked on that pretty heavily through August and September to get it sorted out. We had 52 Geotour sites all throughout all 6 cities. The goal was to get the entire county included in this Geotour. So we've curated all the sites, we've included the history and all the fun facts about it. And now, spring, now that it's warmed up, we're going to put all the cache in all of those sites, and it'll be marketed on geocaching.com. Oldham County Parks and Rec, we've tried to work together to get this done over the last several years, and finally we had time to do it in the spring during COVID. So it's now finalized, the world's largest and most popular geocaching website. And it's going to be called Geotour Oldham County. This one has been, we've been working on this one for over a year. Finally came to fruition. Over 2020, starting in February, we had Zoom conversations back and forth with the National Underground Railroad Museum Freedom Center in Cincinnati, because we really wanted to do a railroad trail, which there's not an Underground Railroad trail in existence. So Nancy Tice, I don't know if you know this or not, but during COVID, in February, March of COVID, Nancy Tice had written a book, and it just came out. And she and I had been working together in 2019 to figure out a way to market this book for tourism and buses and motor coach. So it came out February, March, and we went through it and developed this tour that is another reason for people to come down 71. So it's called a tour on the Underground Railroad along the Ohio River. It also is a partnership with BB Riverboats and includes a riverboat cruise on the Ohio River, and that official tour is going to start in fall. That was another thing we did during COVID. Our professional collaborations, of course, it had to have bourbon. You all know in October, the Oldham County Tourism Office is now located in the same building as the Chamber and Economic Development. That's our new sign. If you happen to drive by it and miss it, it just got installed on Friday. And we're currently in preliminary discussions. We're working on partnerships and some things and collaborating on some projects. And currently, the one that we're working on is just preliminary discussions with potential investors and developers about a sports complex or soccer arena in the county. That's nothing concrete yet, just discussions. Our Bourbon Horses and History region, I've been the marketing chair of that for about 11 years. We just were notified that we have been given $330,000 in an EDI grant to market the region. So what we've chosen to do with that is focus heavily on digital marketing and video, because that's where all of us lack. It costs money to do really good video and do digital marketing the way it should be done. So we're spending that money as a region, but we're also doing it in a way that we can reuse all those marketing materials. So if the county wants to use pieces of it, we're able to use it for a lot of different things. So we should be able to, we should be getting the proof on that in a couple weeks. Our tourism initiatives, if you haven't heard about that, there are 4 state tourism initiatives, and I work closely with David Osborne on these. They're wanting to add transient room tax to campgrounds. That's one of them. The other is to collect a statewide transient room tax from short-term rentals. You probably don't remember, but in fiscal year 18, through this work with the state and my relationship with them, we developed a relationship directly with Airbnb. So they pay us the transient room tax, and we're one of 4 communities that they pay the tax directly to, which in our case is the equivalent to almost a hotel every month. COVID liability protection for small businesses and developing legislation to prevent human trafficking through the hotels, which is a big deal at Derby. So that's my presentation. I tried to be as fast as I could, but that's tourism in a nutshell in the last year.
The new sign was,
We were surprised how big it was when it got installed.
You have to know the sign, he's asking.
Oh, yeah, I've heard.
What was the address of the web? What was the web address that you gave? I tried to put in the tourism KY, Oldham County.
TourOldhamKY.com. Go to Tour Oldham KY. On the other one. It's been live since last week. It's been redone and live since last week.
thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Kim, I got my Kentucky Living magazine, which anybody that's on RACC gets that every month, and I saw a few of our ads in there, and it was good.
That's it. It's redirected. We're slowly moving over to Tour Oldham KY from touroldham.com, because you couldn't tell from the web address even what state it was, and that was an old website that we had. So we're slowly moving to Tour Oldham KY.
Hi, Kim, good job, and thank you for presentation. Got a lot of good things underway there. And good graphics. And all look good. Congratulations. Appreciate your being here. The next item on our agenda here today has to do with public comment. Is there anybody who's come to address this comment here today. I don't see anyone standing, so we'll go on to the next item, and that's our jail budget. Jailer Simpson.
I'd introduce myself since I haven't seen a lot of you all in a while. I know we've been on the Zoom a couple of times, but like everybody else, the COVID-19 has been a challenge for all of us. And just a brief history real quickly. Most of you already know this. Today is only for presentation. It's not for adoption. That's by law. We have to present. We typically do it first Tuesday in April. We'll have several months to look at this, talk about some things, and hopefully what we talk about today will give you some sense of direction on what's going to happen on this next operational budget for the jail. I hope everybody has this copy. Hopefully they present it. I'm sorry. Number on the bottom is 5294408. And before we get into the Q&A, Judge, I think what I would like to do is simply talk a little bit about, what's happened this past year, and just touch on that just briefly. You're going to see some things. There's some different numbers. It has been a challenge for us. Things that have happened, a lot of things that have happened this past year really have been out of our hands. And whether that was on the revenue side, we faced a lot of challenges. From lack of reduced revenue from immigration, which is an ICE contract, reduced revenue from housing out of county inmates there. And you're going to see this as we go through this, but those things have all been directly, pretty much obviously out of our hands as far as what we could do. The court system, arrest, release, new arrests, everything across the board. And then, of course, on the state inmates, it's the same thing. It's been an unbelievable reduction of inmates this past year. Probably have kept up with it, Judge. I know you have. I would think some of the rest of you have too. Early releases, numbers on the state level. Most of your minimum security inmates in the jail system all across the state of Kentucky obviously are housing inmates. And just over a year ago, before the COVID, we were averaging somewhere between 75 to 80 state inmates, 48 in there this morning. So that's been a challenge, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. This operational budget, we just finished March. I know Melissa probably hasn't had an opportunity to close the books on March yet, but we have been able to, through our federal contract, I will tell you, just be straight up and honest, if we not signed that contract in June of 2019 with the state of Indiana, we would have really been against it. But we've been able to offset some of the lost revenue, and so far we're on track. I don't know what the end result's going to be by the end, June 30th of 2021, how much transfer, if any. We've been really working hard. My staff has it's been an unbelievable job that they've done. So from that standpoint, one other thing I'll share with you before we get into the questions and answers from this. 14 months, thereabouts, we've had 4 cases. That's it. Of COVID-19 inside our facility. And I probably had 10% of that have anything to do with it. It's my staff that's done every single step of the way. Quarantine procedures, triaging, everything across the board, they have literally. And I speak about the ones that have stayed with us. One of the other challenges that happened because of this, in the last year, we probably had 10 to 12 employees that enough is enough. It's not going to work in that environment anymore. So there's just been so many different things that have happened across the board as far as that. Moving into this potential, this next year, what's the revenues, what's it going to look like? There are no guarantees. There are no guarantees. Loss of revenue, we don't know as we continue down this path how quickly things are going to change, how quickly the court systems all across at the state level, county level, state level, and even in the federal level. Because right now everything is Zoom, everything's virtual. And thank goodness we're in that new building because we have the technology and the ability to continue to do those things. But again, as we move forward, we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know it from the state level. We don't know it from the immigration side, and we don't know it from the federal side. I will tell you tomorrow, I think this morning I had 135 still federal inmates there this morning, and we're going tomorrow to pick up 12 more. So each and every time, and most of y'all have heard me say this before, because of our efforts, we are in the service industry. That's what we do. We provide service to law enforcement. We provide service to the court system and everything across the board. And again, because of our efforts, we've been able to keep the boat afloat, basically, is what is a good way to say it. Now, Matt Rhodes was here earlier. Matt and I are working together. We are very close. It's going to be the Johnson & Johnson to be able to start vaccinating our inmate populations, those willing to take it. But beyond that, we believe, and Matt is really working hard with it, we've got another meeting scheduled this week, we might be able to, and it looks like we'll be able to do this on every new arrest coming through that door. If they choose to take the vaccine, we can vaccinate them right then and there. That is going to push us, Judge, as the service provider for these agencies, a couple of steps ahead again. Yeah, that's our goal. That's what we're shooting for. And hopefully that's going to have a direct relationship to whether it's on the federal level and even on the state level. So I just wanted to start with the revenue side, just to kind of give everybody a good feel of where we are currently, what potentially lies ahead, as far as what the potential is from that standpoint. I can stop there on the revenue side. If anybody wants to talk about that, then we can go into the expenditure on that side of it. We can talk about that.
I believe the legislature has authorized an increase in per diem for state employees. I heard it's like $2.
Yes, and it's House Bill 556. KJA, we worked extremely hard on that, lobbying, and I'm sure the judges probably also did it. So there is some additional revenue, and let me expand on that real quickly. They started with evidence-based results on programming, okay? So I'm just going to talk about what this new bill potentially means to us versus what old school, and then we can go back to revisit the old way. On any type of programming, whether it's a GED programming, life skills type program, reentry programs, any type of programming, if the instructor is someone who's went and got trained to be that instructor, we have that. My Class D coordinator, we have sent her through multiple certifications. But when that happens, if that person that takes care of those classes and an inmate starts that class and completes it, whatever it might be, again, it could be a reentry, it could be GED, whatever the case may be, we will get $6 per day increase from the state of Kentucky on a state inmate. Okay? If that instructor happens to be and have a degree, and right now we don't have that, it doesn't mean we can't put something out there and let's see if somebody's willing to come aboard when we can reopen and start our programming. If they have a degree, it's $10 increase. So I'll do round numbers. Our current per diem rate is $32. So think about going to $42 if you've got them in a program and you've got an instructor with a degree, or it goes from 32 to 38. The other thing they're going to do starting March of 2020, this is what Judge, I think what you were referring to. After it goes through, and I don't see Governor vetoing any line item issues here with this, but starting March of 2020, they will recalculate every state inmate that's in our jail, has been in our jail since March of 2020. We will get an automatic $2 increase. So there's some additional revenue, and they will calculate this after July 1st is when the House bill goes into effect. And then we should start seeing that money also coming in. There's some grant monies. I know there's been a lot of talk, Judge, about grants here today. Also within the House bill, what they're trying to do is get a consistent uniform across the state of conducting Zoom meetings with judges, circuit judges, district judges, arraignments, and that type of thing. And if we need to purchase any type of IT equipment upgrade, we can apply for a grant through AOC, and they could potentially will be paying for all of that. The other final part of that bill, which is, and you heard me mention, if an state inmate enrolls into a particular program that we have, if it's a 30-day program and they complete, they must complete. We get a one-time, on top of the increase that I mentioned about the instructor part, we get a one-time payment per inmate of $300. If it's a 60-day program, type of program, and they must enroll and complete, we get $600 at the point of completion. If it's a 90-day, we get $900. So there's a lot of different ways of trying to generate some additional revenue on the state level. Again, it's about programming, it's about entering that program, completing that program, and we can move on from that standpoint.
Maybe just to short circuit, not short circuit if you want.
You're fine.
But does anybody have any questions on the expenses in relation
To the expenses here in a minute, and or if you, Judge, you want to do,
We're not going to vote on this today.
this presentation, you're exactly right.
Word, just for the public here, it may not be perfectly clear at this point. We're expecting the operation of the jail to cost about $2.3 million next year. Bringing that amount of money, better with the state. And any transfer would be up.
5.2, did you say?
That's it. 5. The report is probably pretty close to 1.3.
Yeah, I understand.
But we have questions on the
Not necessarily on expensive, Mike, but do you have a feel for what percentage of your population might take the virus of the vaccine?
Yeah, we started yesterday, Steve, doing a survey, in-house survey of the, wasn't the number I was hoping for. We had like 248 yesterday when our nursing staff started. We had 80 that committed to it. I was hoping for at least 50%. We didn't quite get there. But still, when I will tell you this, if those 80 do it, and then we have the ability to possibly vaccinate any new arrests, see, that is going to change our whole internal process that we've had to put in place as far as quarantining, separation, and it's, again, we will be able to promote ourselves, as I said, to these outside, whether it's Indiana feds, Louisville feds, even ICE or immigration. We don't know what's going to happen with that. It's a whole different up in the federal level. We all know there's a different leadership going on up there. But this is going to put us in a better position to lobby for potentially get even more.
A follow-up question. What if you bring in a new inmate, they've already been vaccinated, and they don't have their card on, and you get vaccinated again or I mean, that's probably not on their list.
The only thing, we would do a research on that. If they come in, if they verbally tell us that, well, obviously we're gonna go to Q&A. Where was it? They have our nursing staff contact, whether it's a health department or a Walgreens or whatever, to try to obtain that information before we move forward.
Mr. Harrison.
What main numbers roughly during your COVID situation with KSR?
Well, again, what we've read there and what we know there, Albert, there's, again, as I just said, we've had only 0 deaths, obviously, thank the Lord for that. 4 cases. The thing that's happened at the state level is it's just like anything else. If it gets inside, it is almost impossible to eradicate it, and it's just gonna go. And the fact that in our new building, there's 32 isolation cells, 2 of those medical, negative airflow, has put us in a much better position. I know Matt mentioned something about the total number of deaths. The total number of cases, I mean, women's prison, there's been different locations that just over the top. They've had, upwards of 400 to 500 test positive when the peak would hit them. That's what happened. But they fought through it too. I mean, and to be able to get it out of there, and then obviously trying to some of the jails. I'll tell you this too, Howard. Some of the jails already through their health department has already started vaccinating some of their inmate population. We had our first in-person jail meeting about 3 weeks ago at John Black Center. It was the first time we'd met since October of 2019. So it was very productive, and we were able to share and talk about a lot of these things that we talked about.
What do you mean by negative air circulation?
It's a negative airflow. It's a totally separate air system. In other words, if they're not breathing the same air as my staff. We're always talking about my staff and myself, obviously, too. So if somebody needs to be put in there, and those particular, I will tell you this too, those 2 negative air systems, isolation cells, are actually larger than the normal isolation cells we have. So we can put multiple people, there's 2 of them side by side, we can probably put upwards to 5 in each one, if indeed that's what we needed to do. And that has helped tremendously, unbelievable, from that standpoint.
Mr. Downing.
As you said, this is your budget, you have to make sure for the revenue. I'm assuming these numbers on state revenues or some of these programs that you're looking at, some of this additional money that you may or may not feel will come in, so I don't know, but maybe when I'll answer the judge's situation, the finance committee will have to look at this and then I'll come back to the board one day.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to do it, Bob. We can sit down and just hash it out, answer, direct questions, and then come back. Because again, all we're doing now is just meeting our basic requirement, presenting today, and I'd be glad to talk about anything and everything. I will say real quickly on the expenditure side, there are several things that have happened there. As I said earlier about the revenue side, it's out of our control. Similar on the other, and Bob, the number one thing that I would just mention here today, and this is not just with the jail, I think this is obviously it's across the entire every county agency. Everybody knows what the retirement percentage is gone through the roof. So retirement is way up. The cost for health care just for the jail is a little over $65,000. The retirement is over $276,000 just in retirement with what the employer contribution portion is.
You think they were going to pick up what you did?
There's just so many things, unfortunately, this particular budget cycle, guys, ladies, is that on the revenue side, there's so many things that we had no control over. And on the expense side, some of the things I just mentioned, those are real. It's happening. So, yeah, I think we can go with that route, Bob, and be good to go.
I'm sure you'll be able to auction or something like that.
Any other questions?
I'd like to ask Manager Harrison a question, and since he's been in the military, did they give you an alternate whether to take a vaccination or the induction field, we could just have. I'm just saying, I don't see why we just wouldn't pretty much take those shots.
Well, I was in for 6 years. When I went through basic training,
You get a choice.
they had you on both sides with the left, and you just walk down and they were, you didn't get a choice.
Exactly.
All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. No problem. Thank you.
All right, why don't we try to go to 4 o'clock and then take a break and make it that far? Keep moving the bid. I'll say, yeah, I think we can do that next. Let's go ahead with our bid openings on spring paving packages. And we'll have 6 bidders here. We have packages for all right. First one here, this is under bid page number 1 here, all contracting, $484,846.90. $484,846.90. Next bid is from Libs Living. Doesn't have a total on here. I'll go ahead while Melissa looks at that one. Sorry. Libs paving is $438,648.29. Get that one? 438,648. The next bid is from Louisville Paving, $373,145.55. Riverside Paving, $511,288.50. The final bid in this package is from Flynn Brothers, $439,981.44. Did we have one more? Wingham Paving, $570,275. $507,575.84. Okay. All right, these are bids for work in Crestwood. All contracting, $104,149. Libs Paving, $90,272.16. The third bid is from Louisville Paving, $87,979.15. $87,979.15. Flynn Brothers, $98,287.76. Riverside paving, $98,863. Wingham paving, $99,822.84. That was the last one for Fiscal. The next package has to do with Peewee Valley. Libs paving, $20,227.16. Louisville paving, $22,461.06. Flynn Brothers, $23,658. Riverside, you know, look at this. It should be 19 to 14. I'm not sure what it is. Okay, $17,276.56. Last one here, Wingham paving, $19,372.52. Now we're in LaGrange, the package, all contracting, $124,566. Libs paving, $118,337.70. Louisville paving, $103,309.93. Flynn Brothers, $121,052.60. Riverside paving, $134,148. Final bid here for LaGrange, Wingham paving, $121,212.30. Now we're back to county road paving. So this is a pickup truck. All right, this is a half-ton pickup truck. First bid is for Oxmoor Ford, $32,080.20. Champion Chevrolet, $30,724. everybody who's come for the bids. Thank you so much for your participation. We appreciate your interest. We wish everybody could be a winner. It's not enough money. Thank you. I'm going to suggest that we take a minute recess. All in favor, please say aye. Back at the 10 after 4. Is there a motion we go back into session?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda under county administration are the payables. When you're ready, we'll pay the bills.
Make a motion that we pay the bills.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried. Surplus property, Melissa Horn, do you want to talk a bit about that?
This is a formality, but I am asking you to surplus the county courthouse across the street and all of its contents. We will auction as much as possible, and the remainder will be scrapped. I need this motion to put these items off of our staff set list and off of our books.
I'll make that motion.
Can you hear me? That better?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion about this? We're going to have an auction on April 24th. We're going to have a preview day on Friday, April 23rd. Anything and everything other than the banister in the old building that can be disassembled and hauled off from the 1995 building for sure. In the old building, there's only a vault door. It might be pretty hard to get out of there without a bulldozer or something. But we plan on trying to monetize everything we can. Measure size.
And I assume that the court, the ALC, is taking everything from along with the all the rest.
Everything's left is left.
In regards to the banisters, we're going to store them somewhere and put them back in the new building?
Well, I don't think they're going to go back in the new building, but the history center may like to have them. You might be able to find some local person, a woodworker, who could make something out of them that would be historical. But we don't really, the way the design is, they do not fit in the new courthouse. There's standards for staircases, and they just, Bell, yeah, we're keeping the bell. But we're going to sell the chiller on the roof if anybody will come and get it. And it's one of the things. The bell is not for sale. The chiller on the roof. And they're too long. We have a list of things on the website. Lots of benches, for courtroom benches, which we really help you. We've got sinks and modes and chairs. And some may want windows, they may want door frames. What is ever left is not going to be part of the bid package for demolition. So we're trying to get it out of there before that bid package goes out. And then in the old courthouse, so most things will be left in there. We've got those 8-foot doors in there to be sold. But the old building we picked up and moved before the interior demolition. That won't probably be till summer. They should die.
You might want to say this, I mean, when somebody bids on something, and you mentioned like door faces, windows, when do these buyers have to have this stuff?
We're going to give them about a week.
And if they're going to go in our property and get something out, they're going to have to insure it in some way, this stuff out?
would be if they are a company.
The company you have,
Yeah, if they're a company, yeah, they probably got it, yeah, yeah.
the individual might not.
Talking about a guy with a pickup truck.
Ask them to
You
sign.
go with any auction with a pickup truck.
Ask them to sign a release.
I'm talking about ripping out windows and doors, look at it.
We can ask them to sign a waiver.
That announcement should be made at the auction, that you'll be required to sign a waiver before you remove anything from the zone.
I mean, some things are portable, benches and whatnot, sort of portable. They're big. Now, is anybody planning on coming over after today's meeting to go through the thing? We're prepared after today's meeting to let you walk through and look at what's in there. If you'd like, if no one's going to come, we're going to show up.
We're just gonna walk through to see what's in there.
Yeah, basically, I don't know if anybody wanted to come in with the
I'm trying to stay away from that.
All right, well, let us know after the meeting, Kevin, if we can let you in and take a quick tour if you want to. It's pretty well deserved, but, out of curiosity. Okay, well, we have a motion, don't we? Second, let this, whatever, vote can be taken and go. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now we have a contract with the auction company. This is Timberlake Auction Services. Ricky Timberlake has worked for us before, and Melissa felt he did a good job and satisfied with the experience we had with him. We have set up a circumstance there where we did 20% of the first $70,000 if we ever did get that high, and then 10% above that. So that would be the situation.
I'll make it motion for that.
Any discussion on that? Mr. Harris?
Do we allow other auctioneers to make proposals, things like this? And the reason I'm asking is because I've talked to other auctioneers in Oldham County, and Rick is a friend of mine, has been for years, but he doesn't pay taxes here. His address shows the range for the 3-1, but he's on the other side of the 3-1.
Well, I think we've chosen to, we've had good success with him. He's been very professional, advertised, everything appropriate in the past that we're happy with. We have in the past used at least one other local auctioneer that we did not satisfied with. Mention all.
In this contract, it says auctioneers are not responsible for accidents to magistrate guys. Maybe we could add the line that fiscal court is also not responsible for accidents.
Well, we're going to have a waiver for anybody that, you know, if they're going to take out something small. Maybe everybody that comes and gets an auction number, when they sign up for the number, need to sign a waiver to move the property of their own. Okay, so, fine. All right, we had a first and second on that. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Next item is a resolution and public hearing regarding the community development block grant for coronavirus utility relief assistance. Hayden Kendall is here from to explain the block grant, and we'll have a hearing afterwards. And after she speaks, I'll do the hearing, and then we'll have a
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm
Yeah, I might
This meeting will serve as the official public hearing for the Oldham County CDBG Coronavirus Utility Relief Project. As most of you probably know, on January 25th, Governor Beshear announced $38 million in utility relief funding through the United States Housing and Urban Development's Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG program, which amounts to $200,000 per unit of local government. This funding helps residents who have been negatively financially impacted by COVID-19 and are struggling to pay delinquent water, sewer, gas, and electric utility bills. Oldham County will be applying for the full amount of $200,000. KIPTA and Tri-County Community Action Agency will be partnering with you all through the process, and we both will receive an 8% admin fee, 5% going to KIPTA, and 3% to Tri-County Community Action Agency. KIPTA's Community and Economic Development Division has calculated the total need for Oldham County at $316,831.02, and this includes Prospect, Goshen, and Cooney Valley, and it excludes LaGrange and Crestwood. They are going to submit their own applications. We have not, we're trying to get a hold of Crestwood and make sure they're getting their application going, so that is still to be determined, but as of right now, we're moving forward with Oldham County, including Prospect, Goshen, and Cooney Valley. So the first round, after the admin fees are deducted, the county will be receiving a total of $184,000 of that $200,000. The rest is the admin fees to disperse to residents. Once that has been exhausted, then Oldham County can submit an additional application for the remainder of the funding. For the remainder of the utility need. We do realize that gas and electric are high, the need for gas and electric. However, there are currently programs for gas and electric through LIHEAP and the Kentucky Housing Corporation. So Tri-County is urging people with gas and electric to utilize those programs first, and that will open up more money solely for water and sewer past due accounts. Oldham County will need to create a non-interest-bearing checking account for these funds, and they will be withdrawn in increments of $50,000 when dispersing to residents who need assistance. Additionally, there will need to be a legally binding agreement between Oldham County and Tri-County Community Action Agency to demonstrate your all's partnership in disseminating these funds. For Oldham County residents who want to apply, you will need to go into Tri-County Community Action Agency to begin the process, and they will need 4 things: your driver's license, proof of delinquent utility bills, and how much you currently owe, a completed intake form or personal declaration for assistance, and your last 4 pay stubs. And eligible residents, they're eligible for up to $250 per month for up to 6 months. And KIPTA will be monitoring how this money is dispersed. As you may know, the CDBG program is designed to benefit lower income individuals, and so they will be prioritized and we will track them, but however, no one will be turned away from this emergency assistance, even if you are a higher income, if you can prove that you've been struggling to pay your bills in light of COVID-19. Finally, the American Iron and Steel and Davis Nuclear requirements do not apply to this grant, and the receiving of this funding does not eliminate Oldham County from applying for further CDBG funding opportunities in the future for the community, U.S. community. So I will now open for comment or questions from you all.
You understand what we're talking about here? We've got money coming to pay for the Louisville gas and electric, Oldham County water, Louisville water, for people who have not been able to pay their utility bills and run up debts with these utilities. You have to be able to prove. I heard you say that even if you had a higher income, if you're struggling, or the thought crossed my mind, well, I'm a taxes. Do I get this assistance?
I believe so, as long as you bring your delinquency and prove this.
I mean, not trying to make fun of it.
Right, we're
I know there are people who are hurting, but the utilities are, service are getting stuck with these bills, and there's monies to help get them off the hook.
And another question we had last night at Grange City Council was whether you just automatically got the $250, or if you, but it's based on the need. So if you show up and you are delinquent $150, you're just going to receive $150, and the individual themselves will not just be written a check, it will be written for them and given directly to the utility. So that there's not a misuse of funds. So we asked Fiscal, if there's no other questions, we asked.
Well, I probably don't.
Oh, sorry. Well, HIPTA is going to be overseeing the transactions. I believe that Tri-County Community Action Agency will be handling the distribution.
Tri-County is actually the point of contact for all this. We're going to write the checks and examine the claims.
And then we will be tracking everything through our department.
Monitoring the money has to come through Tri-County through the approval of Fiscal.
So we don't have to check the account.
I don't know. She said interest bearing.
Yeah, I believe you do have the non-interest bearing checking account. I will confirm.
Who's got to do the work? Who's getting the admin? Community Action Agency is getting 3%, and it was getting 8%.
5%, sorry, yeah, 8%.
So between the two agencies, and it sounds to me like Tri-County is the pass-through, the ones that do all the verifying and all that kind of stuff. So they get an admin fee for them.
This is similar to what Tri-County does now. They take care of bills for lighting and different stuff for people that need funding, et cetera, and they do that with water and sewer and utilities right now.
LIHEAP, I believe, means low income heating.
There's different tools that they do, and this is right in there.
Now, yeah, that's how we get all the money.
So to answer your question, I do believe Oldham County will have to set up the account. However, I will get more I'm going to contact Danielle, my supervisor, and get more clarification on how that you all will be involved in the process.
Request them money from us, and we write them one check a month. Let's try to figure out how much effort we have to put in the process.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't want to speak on it too much because I'm not sure of the exact chain of command, so I'm going to ask Danielle, and I can probably get an answer from you before Fiscal Court concludes. She's looking on me.
Good die.
This is just for, I'm taking what the judge said, this is just for utilities, gas, water, sewer, that's it. And the people in Tri-County, people that come in with their bill.
Yeah, so we're leaving it to them to, the individual brings those 4 pieces of documentation that they need, and if they don't have it, they're not going to be able to receive assistance.
How big of how big of a net are they canceling? They're picking people up, Henry or Harrison or?
Well, Tri-County,
County address.
just Oldham, so they'll be splitting it up. You all will be, so for Oldham County's application, they will be only taking Prospect, Ocean, Ely Valley, and anyone outside of any city limits for your all's application.
Tri-County deals with Oldham, Henry, and Trumbull County. They're separate allocations.
In other words, this money is for everybody that lives outside the city limits of Grange, regardless of what you call the other areas. Some of them are cities, some of them are. Okay, I got it.
License, and then
we're gonna try to do everything, online through social media. We can, come speak at any of the city council or future fiscal court meetings. And also.
There's probably a high likelihood that Tri-County clients are already in the mix of people who can't do it. I'm aware of that. I don't want anybody left down, and we've got areas of the county that do not have internet or access to it.
Justin Carter, I'm sure some of you know, he works with, he's been working closely with utilities to get that exact utility need. So the utilities actually have a spreadsheet database of the individual and how much they are delinquent. So I do believe the utilities will also be involved in reaching out to every individual and making sure that they are aware of those opportunities.
Second question, what about people who are good?
I believe that the landlord will be applying, but that's another question I need to ask Daniel. So I will get back to you about that and then also about the payment.
All right, do we have any other questions here?
Well, it's the same as the tourism lady. We haven't been out in public in a while, so
Well, this meeting is also a public hearing that was advertised in the Oldham Mirror because the fiscal court is applying for community development block grant and will maybe be approved for the coronavirus utility relief assistance to help Oldham County people who have been financially impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and delinquent in their utility bill. It's for the most needy in the county, and it's every county. It's the same with every community action agency in the state. They're the same thing. So it behooves us, even though we're a little short of information here, not to do this. We need to do this because it's create a problem for people all over. Do that. Is there anybody here who wants to speak against this? start moving immediately.
Change the gas pump, by the way. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Now we're at the cleanup shop for the Grants and Technology Committee. Aquatic Center Supervisor, job description.
We are going to open the aquatic. There you go. Can you hear me? Okay. We're going to open a pool this year, so we took a look at the job description for the Aquatic Center Supervisor, and we revised it. So that's what we this afternoon for approval. I don't know if you want to look it over. Any questions?
Well, this Aquatic Center Supervisor this has become a full-time position. Aquatic Center management, some of the year, but also functioning in other capacities at the pool during the balance of the year. And you may recall that when we were operating the pool before, the person who had the supervisor job was actually paid on a year-round basis, but they were basically not there all year. To change that circumstance and allow this person to function in various leadership there on a year-round basis, and who will be the principal occupation will be supplementary duties that are assisted with throughout other times of the year.
I'd like to make a motion that we replace the former Aquatic Center Supervisor job description with this new Aquatic Center Supervisor Recreation Programmer job description.
Second, is there any discussion on that?
It says reports to the assistant director of
That should say director. Good catch.
This is an exempt position?
Yes. Because of the supervisory responsibility.
How many people do you think? What's our, I don't remember.
To 30. Seasonals. Yes. Yes. And it's management, that should be the director. This position reports to the director, not the
assistant director in that chain of command. Otherwise, and once you really carry, and you go lateral
instituted, we already have a cost payment program so that multiple people understand the larger scope of what the law in the operation?
I will be, yes. Yes, that is my plan to, with the assistant director, there's one person that's kind of in line for director. The way I want to change the department is now there's 3 people in line that can eventually become the director. And I will help train them throughout their time at the parks to eventually move up.
In my opinion, you should be a part of that. I was all for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Al.
I ran this past Tina and Yuri already to recommend changing no Kentucky driver's license to just valid driver's license. And not make it exclusive to just Kentucky.
I'm going to have to go back to that. Some other things that it said, it's got me more in the dark than I was. You've got how many, before we pass this, how many employees do you have now?
Right now,
You and how many, supervisory, like assistant directors or what?
without this one,
Okay.
well, no, 3. I have, I'm sorry, I'm counting myself in that.
See how I got confused?
I have maintenance supervisor and community center coordinator. That is it right now.
That's the same people you had last year, right? So my question is, are we increasing our number of employees by 1, or have you been, has the position been vacant and not been filled?
It hasn't filled. This position's been there. It's just the position before was a full-time seasonal. I'm now making it a full-time year-round.
You won't be coming back in 6 months and asking for someone else.
Not in that position.
But then you are gaining 1 additional person.
I'm filling an unopened position that we've had forever.
How long have you been open?
Since
You're from the position you didn't fill last year. Okay. But you would normally have that position.
I didn't fill it because the Aquatic Center is double.
You're not really netting at 1 additional employee. Now, you keep it scoreless, right, Tina? Because I'm going to come back to you when it happens. Okay. All right. I got it.
All right, Manager Hawkins.
And just to understand this, this Aquatic Center supervisor was, like you just said, a seasonal full-time, but now you're adding the recreation programmer to it, making it year-round full-time. So now there will, and usually, or historically, the assistant director would do your recreation program. Okay.
I think that we have a motion on this.
Yeah.
And second on this, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Now, Tina can proceed with, we have some personnel action.
We have some personal actions for police department. We are taking 2 laterals. The first lateral is 4 years and coming on as a 4-year lateral. His name is Alexander Static. His base hourly rate is $23.64, and his start date would be April 19th. He graduated from the University of Louisville, went to St. X, and he's worked for the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office for 4 years. He's coming to us from there. Want me to do both of these at the same time?
Well, we'll do the second.
I'll make the motion, Judge.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And the second one is Morgan Roberts. She is coming to us as 5-year lateral. She was with LMPD for 5 years, and she just recently moved to Kentucky. She went to University of Louisville and Kentucky, where she studied justice and justice administration.
seconded. Any discussion here? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Kevin, any of it?
We both bids on the half-ton pickup truck and change show lane is the lower responsive bid, and I would ask for the, we look at, I believe it's 30,724, I know.
Seconded that the pickup truck will shoot the Chevy lane. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
The deputy judge and I talked about this this week. We need to figure out a way that we bought a couple vehicles and we know that it is the amount of federal price. And I don't know how we put this into the plan. I know it's going to add other work. Maybe we need to say that we're going to order vehicles or put this out in January or February so that we do get the best price. Because with some of the vehicles, rather than take what's on the lot, because we can't get them built if we exactly want. It's just taking too long. Like I know with the police cars, we ordered those in August. I don't think we've gotten all of them. We've got a couple of them, I know, but the point is, we need to order these. We know we're going to buy them. We can do January. That's going to save the county money. It's going to give it out to the county to get exactly what they want.
Well, I thought we were getting them. We bought some police cars.
I have an answer. I was talking about the road department recently, we signed a purchase agreement, 2 trucks off the lot. We're getting them below state price contract, but we're not getting them out. So procurement's okay, but I think we need to have a consistent, and I agree with them wholeheartedly, we need a consistent bidding process for trucks. Not just, and it's hard to differentiate the state price contract, because I have to take an Excel sheet, matching against what they want. So let's simply put it out the bid.
For the any cars, not just pickup trucks. I mean, if we're going to buy a new deputy judge mobile or whatever. I just wish you stayed.
Okay, good idea. Let's try to do it. Well, I think we're pretty much at the end of the fiscal court meeting. We'll ask Kendall to come back now with the answers that she received.
So for your question, DLG will be dispersing the money into your all's account that you set up, and then you'll be withdrawing $50,000 at a time and giving it to the Craig County. And so you will have a little bit of work to do in terms of things, but hopefully, I mean, depending on how fast it goes, hopefully we'll do all.
Well, it's not us all. It's
Right.
So we're very happy with it.
And for your question, the utility companies are going to be putting that notice on the bills, on the different statements that you get, and we will, she confirmed that we will be doing advertising on social media as well as encouraging the cities and counties and Craig County. And if you would like to place an ad in the paper, you can do that as well.
You have language for that? Did you provide
Yeah,
that?
we can provide that. Absolutely. Perfect.
All right, thank you. Okay. Good luck. And your experience with Oldham County Fiscal Court. All right, we can wind up today's session here now. Well, I don't know. I guess it's hard to mention license here because Nancy Longson just really changed his look at the end there. Had a meeting off today and gave a nice place to sit.
responsibility as I said before. They are having trouble hiring people, finding people. They've got advertisements, job openings, and no applicants. So somehow or another, this society has created an opportunity for people to stay home and make money. We're not too proud to do it. But that changes my perspective on the state road department. They're doing the best they can for the job. They just don't have a job.
Good point. Base agreement.
Just to kind of point out what Manager Harrison said, I know a guy that was supposed to go to work a tree farm to help dig trees and get them ready for, plant and everything. And so he was supposed to go to work April the 1st, and he got his stimulus check. And so he asked his employer if he could wait a month and then go to work. So that's the kind of mindset we have right now. Don't worry about saving, just spend for the moment and you go to work May the 1st and hope you still have a job. Nothing else, Judge.
Okay, well, mindset is disturbing. That's up to the Manager Hawkins. County Manager now. I couldn't see you behind your shield.
Just a couple things, Judge. First is, we do have a bid out, detailed design engineer for the middle mile for what we're referring to as Oldham County Fiber. It's a statement of qualifications. Bids are due back April the 20th. I'm sorry, April the 16th. I've had a lot of questions lately about the broadband. We're moving as fast as we can. There's a lot of detail that has to be covered. It's important to note that we seek to think we have a good bit of a support. We use the monies that we're going to be getting from the federal government, hopefully to fund the middle mile. I'm sure there has to be some negotiation there, but we are moving forward with that project, and the engineering piece is going to give us a lot of information. Once we get that document back, and once we pick the responsive bidder to complete it, it's happening. It's a slow process. We've got some really nice weather today, and I made the comment to Magistrate Greenlaw Legion in this meeting outside. Obviously, we can't do that on the day. We appreciate it. But take some time and enjoy the parks we have in Oldham County. I can tell you there's some nice parks outside of Oldham County. There's some features that we can't produce in Oldham County that are indoor that you can take advantage of. We do have some nice parks, some walking trails and that you can take advantage of. Basketball goals are back up. You can go out and play basketball in the parks. The playgrounds, there's a couple of playgrounds in the past couple of weeks, and it seems like that people are using them. That's great. Just make sure that you do use social distancing as much as possible and try to clean up after yourselves. There's a park on Friday of last week, some Thursday of last week, and the garbage can was overflowing. These people were putting stuff in the garbage. That was nice to see. Also, too, the last year, the WHS Crusade for Children did not happen as normally had in years past, but it is going to go back to the first weekend in June. I believe it's the 5th and 6th. The fire departments in Oldham County will doing their best. I will not be doing door-to-door. Don't know 100% yet. That's going to be up to the individual department. But the Crusade for Children is, I believe, the only charity in the country where 100% of the donations go back to the community. The monies that come into Oldham County will go back to the residents of the place. And so there'll probably be a lot more push to do virtual donating because of the events. We just would appreciate anybody's opportunity. Thank you.
Manager Hawkins.
Fire Hill Playground should be there soon. Springtime, and it's springtime now, so look forward to that soon. I know they're getting anxious for it. And then schools will be back in Oldham County full time starting after spring break, which is what we're in now next Monday. So there's going to be a lot more traffic. So we'll have to be a lot more full of patience starting next Monday on the. That's all.
Manager Diane.
All right, just
drop these people off, and they're walking around the neighborhood shaking car doors. And they did, I don't know, 6 or 7 different reports. This in Jefferson County, Oldham County line. But one car, they left the car door open, they cleaned it out, and then they took the garage door opener on the visor, hit that, and then they got a lawnmower and golf clubs. So, I mean, that was a pretty good haul that night. So, you know, you just got to be more careful about what you're doing out there. I mean, because it's, if they're out there, if you leave it out there, they're going to get it. It's, you know, I just keep harping on it. If you jump in your trunk. I speak to that.
Andrew Tice.
I don't have anything to that.
Hope that you recover from your broken heel there.
Hopefully in a couple more weeks, I'll be at that point where I'll be not on a scooter any longer. And so I hope.
I'm going to got a couple things to say when we wind up. First thing is commenting on what Ben Allen said. We're trying to move forward on this broadband. Every time you think the path might be clear, in my mind, it gets a little cloudy. We want to do it, but there's forks in the road that are out there, and we don't exactly know which way to turn. The American Recovery Act is pumping supposedly $13 million toward Oldham County that will help us stand out some. We hope that we still haven't seen the rules, but there are going to be federal rules on how you can do this and what you can do with it. I'm aware in Boone County, it's also their fiscal court, I'm told, has committed $13 million in Boone County, and they have got something going with the school board there and also the library to chip in on their broadband program. And they've also entered into some kind of agreement with Cincinnati Bell. Cincinnati Bell has committed, I believe, was it $30 million to this, is what we heard. So they're going to try to wire 40,000 houses in the next couple of years. There's 36 months. So, you know, where does that leave us? You know, we're out there, and we're trying to meet with people that can advise us to do the right thing. And in my mind, it's not good. The right thing is other than do something.
You're right, Judge, and I think that the thing that they have with the Cincinnati Bell piece is a big deal, but because of where they are in relation to Cincinnati, it's a different provider. But it's unclear reading that article, and I know you saw it because I sent it around. I don't know how far they are in the process. We may be as far as they are. They just made an announcement. Because it doesn't seem like if you look at the rest of the story about engineering and stuff. So, I mean, they may be just talking about money. You may be further out.
Just the question is who to believe.
Right.
I'd like to mention that we've got the one sheriff's deputy here is back here, and I thank you for being here. Sheriff has organized again with the range of Oldham County Police a Drug Tech Act Day, April 24th. I think it's from like the 10 to 2, something like that, at the Grange Fire Department Station in Buckner and at North Oldham, and maybe another place or two. I did not see on the news release, though, Union Valley and South Oldham, or this, these fire departments not participate, or do we know?
There's 2 locations. It's usually the Grange Fire Department.
Yeah, right. Well, they said North Oldham, I'm pretty sure on the news release. Anyway, if you have anything in the cupboard that you need to get rid of, you're not being please turn it in. And the last thing I want to mention here is just us. I mean, we're just here together in this room today. You know, if you've been listening to the news, the Georgia legislature has Coca-Cola company that have objected to, as I understand it, people being required to have an ID when they vote. Now, you can't get a fishing license without an ID, much less get on an airplane or do a myriad of other things. Now, as we're sitting here, I've had my Coke yesterday, Steve's drinking his Coke right now, but I'm just wondering if we ought to have a resolution or tell a Coca-Cola company that we just don't like their behavior, pick up their Coke machines and move them out of our building. You know, I mean, all it takes is everybody just to keep rolling over and letting these people do stuff and say nothing, and life goes on. Taking the Coke machines out of Oldham County here in our building is a very, very small, seemingly insignificant act. We might have a resolution, we might get a news story on it, we might light a match. A match can burn down a corpse. But nobody does anything other than that. So think about this. I'm not saying we got to make a decision today on it. But we don't, people come in here and buy out of these Coke machines, but they got these companies. There's too much of this culture, cancel culture, and people doing stuff that